Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
Here we are, Golic decked out in the turnover chain this morning. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pinto Performance Line. Jon Gruden in a few minutes. Kirk Herbstreit after that. Herman Edwards in our studio. Herman, what do you think of the turnover chain on the big fella here?
I like it. The U.
Lost a few bets. Sent the ribeyes to Jim Kelly. This is for Jeff Fiegels, who played at the U, and we played together with the Eagles. His kid punched for the U. I have to wear this for the entire show. He keeps texting me about this. All I text back is, I hate you, and I just keep sending that. Hopefully he'll leave me alone. I guess he wants me to send this back to him. Not happening. Not happening. This is being melted down for scrap, when this show is over. So
what's it made of? It's hard. What is
plastic? Some sort of cheap material.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably you can get at the 5 and dime store, something like that.
Tell you what, they're number 3 in the country, and I thought they should have been number 2, and you could have even made an argument they could have been number 1. But that's for the conversation we'll have with Herbie. I just wanted to take a few, and Herman, thank you for staying a few extra minutes.
Pleasure. Sorry, no NFL this
subject.
Time around, but
this
is
this to me is a bigger deal. Again, for those of you just joining us, we're talking about what is the appropriate reaction of UCLA at this point to the 3 players, most famously LiAngelo Ball, but 3 freshmen who got involved in this incident in China that once again involved the involvement of the State Department, of the White House. The President of the United States had to speak to the President of China about this at a time when diplomatic relations.
Well, again, he didn't have to. He did. And nobody asked. I mean, he did.
Right. Well, I mean,
he did.
He did, and have to, I guess, becomes a relative term.
He didn't have to. He for some reason, whatever reason, he did. I don't know.
I don't know who asked him to or whatever it was.
There,
I mean, he was there.
Right.
One way or another, it involved that.
Yes.
Let's put it that way.
Yes.
And I don't know that it necessarily even enters into the equation the fact that we all know the penalties for different things are different in different places. So what we may view as something shoplifting some sunglasses here in America, it should not be laughed off.
No, right.
But would be dealt with in one way, and we all know that in China it would be dealt with entirely differently. We all saw when it first happened, the prison sentences range from 3 to 10 years for this crime. So it's a totally different thing. And you consider the international nature of the incident and all of the attention that it got, the incredibly negative attention that it brings upon the UCLA program and the university and everything else. Mike, and you made a comparison to domestic violence, and of course I would never compare the act
right. And I'm not
of
making
theft.
that comparison.
No, me neither. But it's one thing to try and gauge what a professional sports league is doing as far as discipline for people in their workplace that have a union negotiating these things for them. And it's another to determine when it is completely within your purview what should be done to these kids by the university. Now, I would definitely say no, they should not have their scholarships taken away.
Right.
And I'm not suggesting they should be thrown off the team. But I think if they're suspended for 5 or 6 games, that would strike me, at least, just from where I'm sitting, as extremely lenient under the circumstances.
I think, and by the way, the 6 games for domestic violence in the NFL, not to get off on a tangent, I wish was more right off the bat. I wish was 10 or a whole season. But to your point, Greeny, you're dealing with a union. It's a little different. But there are those, that's what people do. People would look, if these guys get suspended for the year or a half a year, that's what they would do. They would compare and say, my God, in the NFL for domestic violence, you get 6 games, you steal a pair of sunglasses, and you get half a year. I am hearing from more and more people who I respect, who have been coaches, that are saying they would make these guys sit for the year. Wouldn't take their scholarship away, but would make them sit for the year and then start up again next year. So I don't know if it'll go that far. I think it'll be double-digit games that they're suspended. Possibly, I think at very worst, Herm, it would be you're suspended for the entire season, but I don't think anybody's losing their scholarship or getting kicked off the team. But I wonder if it will be for the season. I don't think it will be.
It's kind of ironic, we sit here and we're debating on discipline of some athletes. To me, it reminds me of your family, being a family member, and what do you do to your kids? And I think if you have 10 people that live in the neighborhood and every kid does this in every home, I think they'll all be disciplined different.
Sure.
Right? And there's no wrong way. There's no wrong way to do it as long as it's done. And you have to feel, this is where I think you have to feel as a coach, You got to know your players, and you got to understand, okay, some guys need more, some guys need less, whatever it is, but there are consequences. And the problem is, we always look at situations and say, well, I would have done that. Okay, that it's easy to say I would have done that. We don't know these kids. We just know them as athletes. Okay, get it. Now, from there, the coach knows them better than anybody, and you know the punishment needed. And I think that's the most important thing. But this is what's great about America. We always want to discipline somebody else's kid.
Yeah.
Well, I would have done this, or I'd have done that. Yes, we always say that. Just take care of your own house. I always tell people, look at your own house. Look at your own laundry. Don't look at somebody else's. Make sure your laundry's right. We always want to get into the seat of, what I'd have done this. You know what? Slow your roll. Let the coach handle it. He'll do what's right. That's why you hired the guy. The guy will do what's right for the university. He will do the right thing.
I'll be very curious to see what it is. Again, they're going to speak today, and we will get some, I guess we'll get some clarity on that. They may not necessarily announce at that point exactly what the discipline will be. And again, to what degree the specter of LeVar and subsequently LaMelo Ball hang over this, I guess we'll find out as well.
The one thing Mike said, and I agree, the domestic violence deal, for me, it should be a whole year.
I mean, listen.
If the guy if you're convicted of that, you're out. You're out. Okay, that's one I agree. You're done. You're out. Whole year, you got to go. Period.
Yeah, I am. Listen, it's a policy the league set without the union. The 6 games could be more, could be less. So I think it was going to get fought. It's getting fought right now. But just from a standpoint of that act of domestic violence, I'm with you. I'd have set it a lot higher.
All right. We will, again, hopefully today we'll get some more clarity on this. And Herman, as we let you go for today, this is certainly not the last time that either of us will see you individually, but it is the last time the three of us will sit here together. And you said nice things before, and we'll just say, listen, of all the people that I've met working here at ESPN, there is no one I've learned more from, and there's no one I have more respect for personally. So thank you for everything.
Thank you, my friend.
You're the
thank
best,
you both.
Herman.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
All right, Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests continue here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. This is our last song.
Oh, boy.
For Jon Gruden. So we play this Gruden song every single week. We play Gruden's Groove. We got to make sure the last one works. So with a little bit of a shaky finger, I reach over to the board, and I hope that this one goes over well. A little rush for Jon Gruden on a Wednesday.
Kidding me?
What do you think, John?
I love Geddy Lee. I'll bet Herman Edwards loves Geddy Lee of Rush.
I am so agree with you. And this song is just fantastic. I am a monster Rush fan, so this is huge.
All right, we took that one out with a bang. Good job by the staff. Well done. All right, Jon Gruden with us here on Mike and Mike. A million things to get into. Let's start with the game that you just had with Miami and Carolina, which, boy, you want to talk about a tale of two teams that felt like they were going in opposite directions. We'll save the good news in a moment. Let's start with the bad. There were a lot of people who came out of that game believing they were not seeing maximum effort on the part of some of the Dolphins and putting their names to it. Louis Riddick said it here, and others were saying that as well. And we've heard that attached to some players in some other places. John, you've seen it in the Giants and things like that. So I guess I'd ask you, A, do you feel as though you're seeing that? And B, in your coaching tenure, if you saw situations where you felt you saw players not giving maximum effort, perhaps in a circumstance where a record wasn't good and a season wasn't going well, how does a coach deal with that?
Well, that's tough. You have to first of all evaluate, is it effort or is it performance or is it preparation? Effort is the player's responsibility. Effort is something that only you can control. Your individual effort is up to you. It takes no talent, none, to give your best. And we don't want people in our organization. We don't want to draft them. We don't want to sign them as free agents. We don't want people around in any capacity that aren't capable of giving their best shot. That goes for the ticket sales. That goes for everybody. And sometimes I do see effort that is not, I think, to the standards that we have seen in recent years. And either is the performance. I think a lot of it has to do with the way we are preparing. And there are a number of injuries, and some of these guys at times, I think, have to play too many snaps because of the depth that they have on game day. But it's something you got to really take a good, careful look at. That's one thing I do want to say, Mike, to you and Mike. I know it's our last week, the three of us on the same show. I love the way you guys bring championship effort to your show. I know you guys get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, got to drive to work, and really got to be upbeat, fired up. It takes championship effort to have the championship run that you two guys have had. And, I'm going to miss you guys. Good luck in your future endeavors, man.
Oh, we really appreciate that, Coach. And listen, we get inspired by the fact of how early you got up all the time when you would join us.
Back in the day, I don't mean to interrupt you, but back in the day, John, and you'll remember that when you were when we started, you were the coach of the Raiders, and you were a very convenient guest for us. You would come on with us back when no one knew who we were because you were up at 3:17 in the morning your time, so we'd have you on like 6:30 our time. You were by far the best guest we had early in the days of Mike and Mike.
Well, you guys have had quite a run, and I think you would agree that a lot of your success, a lot of your sustainability is because of your effort. And right now, it's the time of year as we enter the second half of the season, close to Thanksgiving, that the pretenders will go away and the people that are serious about going all the way, their effort will show up. And that was the theme of our whole broadcast the other night. When you watch Carolina play, on defense, their effort is extraordinary. It's as good as there is in the world when you watch Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis and company go play football.
Watching Kuechly is ridiculous at how he diagnoses a play before it even happens. They're a fun defense to watch. So let's spin it to them because there's been a lot of question. Is this the team from 2 years ago? Is this the team from last year? Look what happens when you kind of let Cam do his thing. All 95 yards of his rushing were on designed runs. So what do you see out of this team when you say 2 years ago or last year on where this team is right now?
It starts with Cam Newton, and he has been hurt. That's a right shoulder injury. He had it surgically repaired, and when you're a right-handed quarterback, it's tough. He missed all the offseason, all the training camp. People don't know how important that is. And he was only practicing once a week in the first 5 weeks or so of the season, and his performance, I think, dipped off dramatically because of that. But now he's healthy, and when you look in his eyes, you see the same charisma, the same excitement, and it just festers throughout this team. He is unbelievable when he's healthy. You can't defend some of these plays because you don't know what they are, and you got to remember he's 6'5", 250, and runs 4.6. He is a beast, and they have a great defense. They have a heck of a kicker, and right now, Mike, they're sitting on a bye week with Greg Olsen, perhaps the best tight end in football, and Ryan Khalil, one of the top centers in the league, 2 Pro Bowlers, probably coming back after the bye. They're just getting better.
Mike and Mike, Jon Gruden is with us. Monday Night Football, of course. That was last week's game. This coming week, the Falcons and the Seahawks. Okay, fascinating matchup between these two NFC teams who, when the season began, I think most of us thought, I thought would be the two best teams in the NFC and have been a little bit up and down. Falcons are coming off a terrific performance against Dallas. Let's start with that. What are you seeing on the tape?
Well, the second half jumped off to me. They ran the ball 13 out of 14 times against the Dallas Cowboys, and it should have been worse. It should have been 34-7 if Tevin Coleman doesn't get a touchdown run called back. They are physically running the football, and that's exciting to see because it helps Matt Ryan. The play action is where he's deadly. They had their best defensive performance, and Atlanta really took advantage of 2 injuries. Tyron Smith goes down at left tackle, and Adrian Claiborne just goes to work, has a monster day. Sean Lee comes out of the game, and that's when they really started running the rock right down their throat. So you have to do that in pro football, take advantage of injuries, backup players. Now they have to go to Seattle and take advantage of a depleted secondary without Richard Sherman, one of the best corners. So I think Atlanta's got a great opportunity here in Seattle.
And there are teams that, we know teams that are out of it, and there are teams that are kind of hovering, and we thought we'd see a little bit more out of the Denver Broncos this year. Right now they sit at 3-6 already. Trevor Siemian's been benched. Brock Osweiler's a quarterback. Are they at a point yet where if Paxton Lynch is healthy enough to play, and we know he's had an injury that seems to have just progressed from week to week, so we're not sure, but if he's healthy enough to play, is he someone that they need to get on the field and get a look at to know what direction they're going to be going?
I believe so, Mike, just because he's a very athletic guy. Remember, Lynch is different. He can run the read option. He's a threat to scramble, unlike Brock Osweiler and certainly Trevor Siemian. They need some mobility, some athleticism, some deception. Their offensive line, I'll say it again, has really hurt this football team. They have a rookie playing left tackle that's very inexperienced. They rotate left guards. They've had 4 different right tackles. I don't know who's playing now because Menelik Watson is on IR. You can't play if you can't hold up down after down, especially in the 2-minute drill and obvious passing situations, and it really doesn't matter who plays quarterback until they solve that group up front. They've had a lot of turnstile positions there.
Mike and Mike, Jon Gruden is with us. You know, sometimes we wonder about the impact of coaching in sports. It feels like in baseball they have so devalued the position of manager because everything is so reliant on numbers. They don't want to pay significant salaries to managers. And then you go to football and you see an example like what they've done in Los Angeles with Sean McVay coming in there and just turning around Jared Goff. And I wonder, as a guy whose job it was to work with quarterbacks for so long as it was yours, John, what are you seeing in what they've done there? Because Goff was a guy, and maybe it was premature, but people were starting to wonder if he was a bust last year, and now all of a sudden he's broken out and they're the best offense in the NFL. What have they done specifically that you've seen for Jared Goff to make him what he looks like right now?
Well, remember, he was a true junior that came out of college. He came out early in a no-huddle offense, and they had a very difficult offensive line last year. I mean, Greg Robinson was a failure at left tackle. Bringing in Andrew Whitworth, they've had the same starting offensive line. They're the only team in the NFL that has the same starters up front every game. That means they're out there probably for about every practice. And they have been able to activate Todd Gurley. It all starts there, I believe. They can run the football inside or outside with, I think, the best running back in the league. And when you can do that, you can throw the ball better. And Sean McVay's a great coach. They have added a lot of skilled players. Woods is a lot better player in L.A. than he was in Buffalo. And Sammy Watkins is a lot better player, I think, in L.A. than he was in Buffalo. And they've got a tight end nobody talks about in Everett. None of those guys were there last year. Either was Andrew Whitworth. The scheme, the players, the fact they can run the ball and get a lead. Now, when they get a lead, they get to turn loose Wade Phillips' defensive line. And when you watch Quinn and Aaron Donald, good luck blocking them. They have not been able to do that in years past because they've never had a lead. And now, when they score, they're more dangerous on defense than they are on offense because these are savages that can get after you, man.
Really are. They get after the quarterback like no other. And that running game you talk about, boy, how that's helped New Orleans as well when you're just used to it relying on Drew Brees, and that defense has picked up as well. Well, John, one thing we can always say about you as well is the years we've had you on, we've always had to ask you the same question more times over these years than anybody else. So, and we have to do it again because it always happens. Your name always comes up. This time, with the Tennessee head coaching job, your name comes up. What say you about that?
Well, you know what, Mike? I haven't talked to anybody, and all I really have in my life is my family and football. That's about it. And I'm real sensitive to the coaches that are out there coaching, so I don't speculate. I just love football. I'm trying to hang on to the job I have. I'm very fortunate to be with the people I'm with. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I just know this. I'm going to continue to give my best effort to the game, stay prepared, and I love Monday Night Football. Don't plan on leaving, but as you know in life, you never say never to nothing.
Fair
Amen
enough.
to that. Agree with that.
John, listen, as you mentioned, this is the last time the three of us will be having this conversation. We've learned so much. Just speak for myself. Because
I have.
I've learned so much from watching football and listening to you talk about it. And I remember so fondly when Mike and I would go on the road every now and again to do our Monday show. We'd be in that room
with you guys
where you guys would all be watching the games on all the TVs. And I remember you would point so many things out. I learned a whole lot about football and a whole lot more from talking to you about it. So I have really appreciated that over the years. Thank you very much for everything, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, John.
Oh, thank you, guys. Hey, man, I know there's a lot of shows out there, and you guys are going to do great in the future. And if you ever need a friend, you know where to reach me. Good luck to both of you, and thank you for a lot of great fun and entertainment over the years, brothers.
Thanks, you, John. John Gruden with us on Mike and Mike. On the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, get instant gold status at Shell. Join the Fuel Rewards program now at fuelrewards.com/gold.
Now we'll be fighting over him as a guest. I
have a feeling we'll both get him whenever we want him.
Somehow I think it's going to work out.
He's such a fascinating person.
He is.
Like most people in life can be sort of put into boxes. Yeah, he's kind of like him or she's kind of like her. They're all kind of like. He's just in my life anyway, I don't know anyone that I say, yeah, Jon Gruden reminds me of that person.
Just hearing the stories of guys that have coached with him, especially when he was in Green Bay with everybody there, with Andy Reid, with Holmgren and stuff, and what would go on there. But what you said, I don't think a lot of people realize, those that haven't listened for all 18 years of this show, when we were on, he was with the Raiders, and he got up at 3:17 every morning, whatever time zone he was in. So that was in L.A., or that was in Oakland. So that was 3 hours. So he'd be on our show at 6:15, 6:30 when he would come on. It was fantastic.
Yeah, we couldn't get him when he went to Tampa.
No.
Because he was already busy by the time our show came on the air doing stuff. But when he was in Oakland, he was free.
Nobody else was up at that point. So
Jon Gruden was probably the first really significant regular guest that we had long before he came to ESPN, because he was up and he was available and, he was happy to talk to us. But what I meant, just to quickly finish my previous point, we know a lot of guys who live and breathe football like he does.
Yeah.
How many of them have had pictures taken with Gene Simmons and traveled with, who did he say? Who's the other guy he loves?
Yeah.
The guy was, oh my goodness, his name just went out of my head. It'll come to me.
And
in
when's
a second.
the last time you heard anybody say I had a picture made with?
Yeah, I mean, he's just a fascinating guy.
He's just a good guy.
He is,
really, really a
I
good
like
guy.
him.
Yeah.
So that was fun. I've enjoyed that a lot.
Hey, everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Home isn't just a place, it's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you, whether you're at home, your business, or online. We help keep you safe with security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home. Safe home.
All right, let's dive right into it. Kirk Herbstreit is standing by. Game day this week in Madison for a huge one. Michigan against Wisconsin. This will be Wisconsin, a really good opportunity for them to notch an impressive win as they try with their unbeaten record to break into the top four. So, Herbie, let's start as general as we can. Were you good with the four teams the way they were, with all the teams, I guess, up at the top of this thing, generally speaking, in the order in which they were placed last night?
I guess. I mean, those were the four teams. I personally had Oklahoma all the way at 1. I was a little bit surprised with the wins that they have, that they would be down at 4. Clemson's done a great job. I don't buy that they've beaten, the winning teams that are on their schedule. I think some of those teams are like just a game above 500. But nonetheless, they beat Auburn, which was obviously a significant win. Being able to knock off Virginia Tech at the time was a huge win for them. NC State on the road, Florida State. The last 2 weeks have been very close games for Clemson. But that's all going to – I mean, the way I look at it, we can jump up and down in whatever, November 14th or 15th. But all these teams control their own destiny. So they can be upset where they are right now. But if they went out, Oklahoma's just fine. They've got a lot of games ahead of them. But if they're able to win out, then Oklahoma really does. They don't have to worry about where they are in mid-November. The really interesting part is going to be Wisconsin sitting there at 5, undefeated. With Notre Dame's loss, they're in a much better position. Looks like if they're able to win out, which is a big if, they could be up in the top 4. And same with Auburn and Georgia, despite losing. Georgia still, I think, controls its own destiny, sitting at 7. And Auburn, with a huge win last week, which we talked about, they move all the way up to 6. And despite those 2 losses, with Bama coming up next week, sitting at 1, and Georgia coming up the following week, if they win against Bama, Auburn will end up getting in there as SEC champs if they win their next 2.
You know,
I just want to give Herbie credit, by the way. Last week, at this time on this show, he said Auburn was going to beat Georgia, so he had that one right.
Absolutely did it. And so we're trying to go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think a lot of us just wanted to see that those of us who follow closely, it's nothing against Georgia. It's just they're kind of a one-dimensional team at this stage with a true freshman quarterback. And on the road, not in Athens, but on the road, if the running game wasn't working, could they throw the ball and be okay? And that was the one thing for weeks we've been saying, who's the one team that can do that to Georgia? There's the game. Auburn on the road. Let's see what they do in Jordan-Hare. And obviously they had their struggles.
Well, listen, one of the things I had said a few weeks ago, and to echo your point, was we need to see what Georgia could do if they have to throw themselves back into a game. We need to see what Notre Dame can do if they have to throw themselves back into a game. And we saw the results of both of those. There are few Power 5 teams with one or fewer losses at this point of the season through Week 11 than during any college football playoff era at time before. There's 6 right now. Last year there were 7. 2015 there were 12. 2014 there were 10. So, Herbie, we're trying to figure out who has that really legitimate shot. You know, Alabama, Clemson, Miami, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, Auburn, Georgia, if they were to win the SEC. We think Ohio State could still have an outside shot. Does it go past that? Could you throw in USC? I mean, I really have them, okay, if mayhem happens in front of you, possibly, but would you include them in that as how deep it can go that a team can get into that Final Four?
I guess you could throw them in only because you're throwing Ohio State in, so I think USC is a team that people have talked about. I think with Ohio State and USC, the two losses that they both have that continue to haunt them, you know, USC losing to Notre Dame in South Bend, 49-14 is a very significant loss for them that people just can't seem to get over. Ohio State, of course, a couple weeks ago, 55-24 at Iowa State. Those are tough things. Ohio State is a team that one week or one quarter they look like they're the best team in the country. The next week, you know, they lose at Iowa. You know, and when you're splitting hairs, those things can really haunt you. You know, when it comes to trying to say, hey, we deserve to be that team. So, Mike, I guess you could say SC sitting there at 9-2, UCLA this week, Pac-12 championship game that's still out there. I don't think it's as big of an opportunity as what Ohio State has with their schedule, with Michigan. Not that Michigan's a highly ranked team, but it's Michigan on the road, a rivalry game. And then if they're able to win that and still be in the discussion, then you're talking about possibly having undefeated Wisconsin sitting out there. So I just think what's in front of them, the stage that they have, is different than what USC has. And that's why Ohio State still is hanging on a little bit to a little bit more hope maybe than SC.
Herbie will have USC this weekend. USC, UCLA, that rivalry, 8 Eastern on ABC. And that's after, as I mentioned, College Game Day will be in Madison. We do have to get your thoughts on the game that you guys called last week. For those who were watching us on TV this morning, Golic is wearing the turnover chain.
Whatever.
And I tell you, that game, your guys' game was on at the same time that the Northwestern game was on ESPN2, so I was flipping back and forth, and every time I turned back to your game, Miami had scored another touchdown. Herbie, that was obviously an incredibly impressive performance. Can you give us your sense of what you saw there Saturday night, not just in the performance of the team, but the whole scene? There was a real the U is back kind of feel to everything that was going on.
It started in the morning with College Game Day. We really wondered what kind of scene we'd have. We haven't been to Miami since 2001 for a College Game Day. And when we were there, we were outside the Orange Bowl. The Orange Bowl is no longer there. And you don't want to really go outside a Hard Rock Stadium at 8 or 9 in the morning. So they decided to go to Coral Gables on the campus, and we wondered, you know, how they would show up. And probably one of the most bizarre, crazy, great scenes we've had. One of the shows I've ever been on. It was incredible. This fan base is starving to get back. I mean, it was, I don't know if you saw any game day, but it was such a cool setting with, you know, a lake and a pool, and it was sunny. I mean, it was like a postcard day of an infomercial for 3 hours for Miami. And it carried over into the game. And Hard Rock Stadium against Virginia Tech was rocking, and the players really fed off of that with the turnover chain, and it's just such energy from that stadium. It's one of the loudest stadiums you can imagine, even though it's not the biggest. It's the new configurement of that stadium. It kind of echoes down on top of you. You could see the Notre Dame fans kind of plugging their ears at certain times during that game because it was so loud. And the game against Notre Dame, you can't imagine. I went back and I was like, how does this happen? How does Notre Dame, who was averaging over 300 yards a game on the ground, and by the way, they played against some teams like Georgia and at Michigan State and USC and a really good North Carolina State team. Wake Forest led the nation in tackles for a loss. How do they go through all that and then look like they're playing in quicksand against Miami? How does that happen? And the only thing I kept going back to was the crowd had to affect that offensive line, the execution. Miami, of course, is feeding off of that energy, like playing with a turbo button on a video game, and Notre Dame wasn't allowed to use their turbo button. Their linemen would be pulling, and the backside defensive end for Miami, where the tackle was pulling, he's chasing the play down for a loss of 2. It was just such slow developing in the running game that then they had to go to their passing game, which is obviously not their strength, and then at that point, obviously, the game was over. The thing with Miami is it's been a great story these last 2 weeks and what they've been able to do. But make no mistake, I was there for both games. This is a team that struggled against Syracuse, struggled against North Carolina, struggled against Georgia Tech, struggled against Florida State. Now, to their credit, they found ways to win. But those are the reasons people questioned, how good is this Miami team? So they look great in front of that crowd and that energy. This Saturday, noon, home, Virginia. Not going to be the same setting. Can they still play with that kind of energy and be that dominant? Same thing, the day after Thanksgiving at Pitt, Heinz Field. There'll be scores of dozens at Heinz Field on a Friday night after Thanksgiving. All those yellow seats, 12, 15,000 people in there. Can they go on the road and show, hey, we are this team? The team you saw against Virginia Tech and Notre Dame, that's who we are. So Miami's looked great, but Miami still has a lot to go out and prove before they get to Clemson in the ACC championship game.
One of the best lines I thought you had in the broadcast, and you were right, it seemed like there were 15 guys on defense for Miami. I was not overly impressed with Notre Dame's play calling. I was not overly impressed with their adjustments to what was happening on the field. That all said, you do nothing but tip your cap to Miami and the way they played in all phases of that game. You give them the credit for that win. One more from me, Herbie, just because so many people bring it up when these rankings come out, and then there are the faction that says, why can't UCF get a chance? Scott Frost and what he's doing with that program, undefeated, is the only way a non-Power 5 team ever gets a shot, and even maybe that's a stretch, is if the playoffs are ever expanded. Other than that, do you never see a way that they're going to get a chance to prove themselves at the end of the season?
It'd be very, very hard to imagine. And I'm not saying that's fair or it's right. I just think with 4 and 5 Power 5, the Power 5 conferences, there's such focus on, think about Wisconsin until Notre Dame lost. There was a lot of talk about, imagine if Wisconsin goes 13-0 in the Big Ten. Somehow they're left out. That's in the Big Ten. So there's such focus on the Power 5 that it's very, very hard to imagine whether it's Conference USA or the MAC or the AAC or whatever conference is trying to get up there. The only way you could ever even come close to envisioning it is to be like one of those Boise State teams a few years ago that had Kellen Moore when they went on the road and played Georgia in Atlanta and beat them. They went on the road and played a good Virginia Tech team and beat them at FedEx Field. And it was high profile. They were already preseason ranked, like let's say 18, and then they go play a team in the top 10 or top 5 as a non-conference opponent. It's almost like the stars have to align perfectly. That year, Boise State, and this is only the BCS in 2, they were in a position until they lost to Nevada and Colin Kaepernick that night on a Friday night. They looked like they might break up the apple cart and have a chance to get into the BCS as a team that you would never expect to get there. And the only reason they got there was because of that big non-conference win. So for UCF or teams like that's what it would take to even be potentially close to being in the discussion. And they've done an incredible job. The coach is probably as hot as anybody. but if you look at who they have beaten and you compare it to what some of these other teams have done, it's hard to put them up there. Although I did see a blind resume yesterday with them and Wisconsin side by side with how many teams they have played, and I still would disagree with that. You could look at a blind resume, but even though Wisconsin hasn't played necessarily a great schedule in the Big Ten, it's still much tougher than what UCF has faced.
Herbie, you're the best. Thank you so much. Thanks for everything, and we'll see you down the road. Thank you.
Well, you guys, I know I've been hearing everybody this week come on and say thank you, and I'd just like to echo those sentiments. You guys are a part of everybody in the morning. You just flip on Mike and Mike. It's what we've done for years and years and years, and just really have enjoyed the banter, and not just with me coming on, obviously, but really more with just the show every single day. You guys are so consistent, and I don't know if people realize, I know you guys are an autopilot and you do it. I don't know what time you wake up to get to your show, and I'm not saying that you're complaining about it because I know you're not, but to do that for day after day, week after week, year after year, on behalf of all of us as college football fans and sports fans, we really thank you guys for everything you've done, and wish you guys all the best in your shows coming up, which I know are going to be great. And you're not going away. It's only going to get better, but we'll miss you two together forever.
Thanks, Herbie.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Herbie. We love you, man. Thank you very much for everything. And what a great guy. Herbie with us, brought to you by Allstate. Make sure you check out the Herbstreit and Fitzsimmons podcast. We're late here. Let's come back and tell our favorite Kirk Herbstreit story, that and much more. And we return in just a moment on Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike, congratulations on 18 years of being such a successful morning show. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it, for bringing me into your home in studio to just chop it up all about football, all other topics that we've discussed on the show. You guys have been amazing. And again, I want to say thank you for just being the best on ESPN Radio.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Just have a couple minutes here before we get to the top of the hour and re-rack all the news of the day, so it does seem like a reasonable time to reminisce about our favorite Kirk Herbstreit story, where we discovered Herbie is just as germy as I am.
I was amazed at this. I'm not going to lie.
We were hosting the ESPN Upfront, which in those days, or at least that year, they did at night, and it was sort of done in the round. It doesn't make any difference, really, for the purposes of the story, but it was sort of a crazy night. And you and I were both a little bit, agitated about it. When it was over,
and it was a dressy night too. Everybody was dressed up there, suits and such.
At the Upfront, you're in suits.
Yep.
And it was like a big deal. So when it was over, you and I were both kind of relieved.
Oh yeah.
We were sitting in this green room that we had, and we were drinking beer.
Some adult beverages. I was drinking beer.
And so I'm sitting on a couch.
Yes.
With Kirk Herbstreit, and we're drinking beer.
Other people around.
Lots of people around, and Golick is standing right behind us.
Right.
And a dirty joke is told.
Yes.
A good one. And on the punchline, Golick spits beer all over Herbie.
I mean, it wasn't intentional. He just took a sip of beer at the wrong time. The punchline came out, and I mean, I had a mouthful, and I spit it all over Herbie, and that's when a realization hit.
He leaped up, and this was like a 70s sitcom spit take, all right? It was that significant. And he leaps up, and my first reaction is he's upset that it's his suit.
Right.
But instead, he has the same reaction I would. He's
like skeeved out. Oh, yeah.
And he's so germy, and we start talking.
Yeah.
And I have subsequently learned Herbie and I are like, we're the Purell twins.
If there was a shower within walking distance, he would have been in it. He wasn't. I mean, didn't get up and was mad and want to. We're not saying that. But he was that was it.
He was upset.
He wasn't
angry. He was freaked out.
That his person now owned beer and someone else's spit on him.
He was more upset about the spit than the beer is the point.
Yes.
And, it just goes to show you. I mean, he was a football player, right?
Yeah.
Everyone just knows Herbie now as a handsome analyst. But Herbie, for years and years, he was the quarterback at Ohio State.
Yeah.
And so he's a rough, tough football player. But, boy, let me tell you.
Oh, man.
Those germs. It was very funny.
They got the best of him. It almost made me want to spit on him again. I didn't, but,
Never got that chance. Mike Krzyzewski, Joe Girardi, and Paul Feinbaum still to come today. Mike and Mike.